Bill Murray was one of the most famous actors from the 90s, and one of his most iconic films is Groundhog Day. For the first time ever, I decided to give this movie a watch, and after watching it, compared to what its legacy is supposed to be, I have to admit, it's a pretty disappointing movie. Now, I don't think it's a bad film, but it's not necessarily as good as people say. I think it's a movie that's actually better in theory than the final product. A big issue with this movie is that it doesn't really know what it wants to be. Where there's times where it tries to be a comedy and there's times it tries to have like some dark premises, it kind of just ends up being a generic love story. Where a lot of the crash scenes we see and a lot of the deaths from Bill Murray just kind of feel more like filler than it does living up to the actual story. The dark premises of how it would drive you insane kind of get overshadowed by the generic love story we get between Rita and Phil. This film could have done a lot more than just make it, oh, Bill Murray gets the girl at the end. There could have been wacky psycho adventures, kind of cartoonish. You also could have had where we do see Phil go more and more insane, and he tries to become dictator, and he tries to become king of the city. And at the end of the day, it just kind of settles on, oh, Phil, he gets with the reporter girl. Another problem I also have with this movie is that it doesn't really teach the life lesson well. Where in the movie Scrooge, obviously we see that he is an absolute jerk to everyone around him. He's a cheapskate. So then the three ghosts show how life would be better if you're more selfless and if you're a better man. And Ebenezer learns that lesson. The whole movie with Scrooge is based on how you should be a better person. Where in this movie Groundhog Day, the main lesson should have been you have to live every day like it's your last. You have to be the best man you can be. You always have to be optimistic. But it doesn't really address that well. Where in the beginning, Phil's kind of a jerk. They don't make it evident that he is actually a horrible person and he needs to change. Then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, he's happy or everything's cool with him. The character arc wasn't the main purpose of the story. Where at the end of the day, it's like, okay, he kind of becomes a jerk and then he kind of manipulates his surroundings to eventually have the life he wants, where that's not necessarily teaching the life lesson. And if you're gonna go in the route of you manipulate your surroundings, you can go so much more experimental than how this movie portrays it. Groundhog Day has a huge legacy and a phenomenal concept. It's one of the most influential concepts I think I've seen in cinematic history, and a lot of people just love the idea of this movie. But just because something has a good premise doesn't mean the product is actually good. And Groundhog Day suffers from that problem. Where this movie, it's kind of scattered, it's all over the place, it doesn't really know what it wants to be, and it tries to add up so many ingredients in the stew that it just ends up tasting bland. Even though it is a very iconic film, it has a big legacy, it is an overrated classic and not as good as people say.